Today we're going to be reading from the book of Vayikra, chapter number 16, verses 1 and 2. And then we're going to slide over to chapter 19 and read verse number 1. Of course, this Torah portion is Acharei Mot, after the death, and Kedoshim, the set apart ones. Once more, before we get started reading, if you're there, if you signed on, send me a little comment. Let me know that you're there. Okay, we'll go with 2 households and count it with mine 3 and be done. All right, chapter 16, verse number 1. Yahweh spoke to Moshe after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron as they drew near before Yahweh and died. Yahweh said to Moshe, "Speak to Aaron your brother not to come in at all times to the set-apart place inside the veil before the lid of atonement, which is on the ark, lest he die, because I appear in the cloud above the lid of atonement." And the phrase that we want to pay attention to today is to not come in at all times to the set-apart place. And then in chapter number 19 and verse number 1, and Yahweh said to Moshe, saying, "Speak to all the Yadiah, that is the congregation of the children of Israel, and say to them, be set apart, be kadosh, for I, Yahweh, your Elohim, am kadosh, or set apart." The idea that we're dealing with in these 2 texts is holiness. Now, if you say holiness to a group of people, immediately the term can strike righteous fear in someone's heart. It can suggest a goal that we believe in ourselves we'll never reach. Or maybe we consider it a set of extremes to separate people with religious rules. Personally, I grew up in what is called the Holiness movement, being raised and attending a Pentecostal church, particularly in the South and particularly in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Being in a Pentecostal church as a part of the holiness mindset or holiness movement, what it really meant was you didn't see any women wearing jewelry or cosmetics or wearing pants, at least not to church. Men with long hair was frowned upon. Girls didn't wear shorts during the summer. If you went to youth camp, there was no mixed swimming. Boys swam in the afternoon, girls in the morning, or vice versa. Many refused to attend a public event like a carnival or a concert or going even to movies. And I remember in high school, there were some girls that were of a similar belief in another church. I remember them sitting out from gym class because their parents refused to allow them to wear gym suits, which would have consisted of shorts. Therefore, since they couldn't dress out, they wouldn't participate, and they religiously got a 0 for gym class. The idea was, well, we're holy. We're holy. And someone's typing in, are we online today? Yes, we are. Live now. Okay, let's continue. I remember being a junior in high school and getting my class ring. And I was very proud of my class ring. But there were times that I struggled in wearing it to church, because when I wore it to church and the act of worship, I would raise my hands, and seeing that ring on my finger I thought there may be some folks in the church congregation that would be offended. Sometimes I did, and sometimes I didn't. Until I just made up my mind, the religious folks will just have to get over it. All of the effort here, though, and abstaining from certain things and pulling away from certain things was an effort to be holy. The problem was these ideals of holiness were pretty much based on an old South culture more than any scriptural text. People were sincere in their attempt to be a set-apart people, to be a holiness people, and to be separate from the world that was around us. But this attempt was not unlike any other sects or groups, even including some in modern-day Hasidic Orthodox communities. They are immediately recognized as being set apart, unique, seeking to be a holy people, as a holiness woman in the 1960s with a beehive hairdo, piled on her head with no makeup, wearing a dress while she's hanging out her laundry. The attempt was to be set apart, to be separate, to be unique, to be different. And while it's all appreciated and while we all understand it, the question is, what are we striving for? This text here says that we are to be set apart, that we are to be kadosh because Yahweh is kadosh. The understanding is we are never going to be as kadosh or set apart as he is. He is the absolute purity of being set apart. Will we ever achieve that? Not in this particular lifetime. So why bother? Because he said to. He says to be set apart. So Laura is telling me that the live stream is not on. Okay. So what to do here? Johnny, can you still hear me? Johnny, can you still hear me? Can you text me something? I'm on live stream. Brian says it's working there. Others are saying they can't find us. I don't understand. Johnny can hear me. Brian can hear me. So we're live. All right. We'll continue. All right. So what is it that we're striving for? What is it that we're going for? Are we looking for separation for ourselves? Are we looking for exclusion of anyone else who is not like ourselves? Are we looking to only include those who are like ourselves? Basically, instead of separation or exclusion or inclusion, we're getting confusion. So why are we doing this? What is the effort here? If we're to ask about anyone or any group what they hope to gain in exchange for or because of their being holy in their estimation, what I have heard others say in the past is the presence or the power of God, brother. In my childhood, I remember hearing preaching about paying the price of holiness and having the genuine, real power of God operating in your life. I remember hearing preachers quote from Leviticus 19:1, and in typical Church of God fashion, "Be ye a holy, for I am a holy." Well, it was sincere, it was devout, it was encouraging, it was genuine in their heart. This is what they wanted. Were we holy? It's understood among many of the rabbis in regards to Nadav and Abihu and their death that it wasn't that they were drunk, and it wasn't that they had obtained illegal fire to present their incense before Yah, but rather that they were simply seeking to encounter the rapturous joy and ecstasy of the divine presence. That the sin that they were, if there was a sin, what they were consumed for was seeking to escape the mundane world that was around them and be consumed in the divine presence of the Most High. And in some rabbinical estimations, Yah gave them what they were asking for and consumed them as a living offering. They had been quarantined for 7 days in the tabernacle. They had been set apart as Kohanim, not just Levites, but priests, Kohanim. They had just successfully presented the offerings, the korbanot, on this first day of Levitical operations. And fire had come out of the set-apart place and consumed the offerings. They took one step either too far or one step beyond, according to whoever you would ask, and they literally died from too much of Yah's presence. So let's ask the obvious question. Does Yah want us to be set apart in order to come into his presence, or just be set apart? Is there a goal in mind asking us to be set apart, or is it just a command that we are to be a unique people? I intend today to be intentionally pastoral in my sharing, my teaching today. Not looking to be filled with a lot of wow factor. This is just good, solid understanding. So let's first of all consider there are two aspects of being set apart. Two aspects. Number one, in being set apart, you need to understand what we're set apart from. In Vayikra 18:3, in this Torah portion, it says, "Do not do as they do in the land of Mitzrayim where you dwelt, and do not do as they do in the land of Canaan where I am bringing you, and do not walk in their laws." Don't act and live like where you came from. And when you get to where you're going, don't do as those people are doing. There's a reason. Yah was getting ready to vomit those people out to make room for Am Yisrael to come in. And he says, do not do like they're doing. In 18 verse 7, no one is to approach any one of his own flesh to uncover his nakedness. I am Yahweh. Now, why in the world would he ever have to tell us not to intimately approach your own family members? For two reasons. Number one, that was what was going on in the land that they came from and where they were going. And then reason number two, if he didn't say no, then we would end up finding a way to say yes. Because man is just not, by standards of normalcy, normal. Man is nasty. And man will do the unthinkable if he thinks he can get by with it. After listing the perversions of the Goyim, then Yah says in 18 and verse 24, do not defile yourselves with all of these, for by all of these the nations, the Goyim, the Gentiles, here's a reason not to call yourself a Gentile. By all these, the Goyim, the Gentiles are defiled, which I am driving out before you. Now, Yah drove out those who practice sodomy and sorcery and sexual immorality in order to give you and I our inheritance. My question is, why would we trade our inheritance in the coming kingdom for these same cursed things? You and I are called to be set apart from them. You might say, well, as far as sodomy, sorcery, and sexual immorality go, that's easy. I'm not going to be a part of that. But we're to be set apart from them, from the ideas of them, from the acceptances of them, from the approving of them. I'm not going to stand on a street corner with a sign in my hand and rail and slander and accuse someone who is homosexual, someone who is involved in witchcraft. But by my living and by my attitude and by the demonstration of my walk, it needs to be clear that I don't approve of these things. Neither can we indulge, I may be in trouble here, but neither can we indulge or include those who practice such things as a part of our congregations. Now, I know we all probably grew up in a building of worship. A denomination maybe had a marquee out front that said something along the lines of, everyone is welcome. Y'all come. We're glad to have you. You have a revival. You go and invite any and everyone that you can find to come and sit in the pews with you. Can I tell you that scripturally, that's not necessarily what Yah is asking you and I to do. We say, well, we're doing it as an act of love. And there are church congregations nationwide that have now opened up their doors, and it doesn't matter who you are, what you're doing, not just what you've done. If you're tired of what you've done and you want to change, that's one thing. But when you're still doing what you've done and you have no heart to change, you just want to be included. Church doors are now being opened up. Maybe even Hebraic root doors are being opened up. Just everybody come. Y'all come. Do what you're doing, live as you're living, but just come in the hopes that at some point love will win them over. Well, the reality is we're called to love and to show compassion and to share the truth of the word with those who have ears to hear what the Ruach is saying. There is indeed the power of Elohim that will deliver them and set them free if they're wanting to be set free. But the scriptures would teach us that the congregation of Am Israel is to be a set apart people. And many have gotten confused when they ask, how many people are getting saved in your church? House of David is not necessarily set up for the sinner to come and hear a message of salvation and come down to an altar, kneel and pray, and quote unquote get saved. But rather it is a training ground and an operation of the family of Elohim set apart to him to study his word. And then you and I go outside the building, outside a location, in this current circumstance, outside of our virtual congregation, and where we go as we are going, as we're living in our community, that we have righteous influence on those who are in need of salvation. The correct place, according to Scripture, as I read it, is that people would find us, that we would find them. And out of a trusting relationship with them, we would lead them to Messiah. Then they can come and hear the teaching of Moshe on Shabbat. Now, if a sinner comes in, he sits among us and wants to pray and give his life to Messiah, hallelujah, we'll do that. But that is the exception and not the rule. That's not necessarily what we're being set up for. The issue I'm concerned with is that when we open up the doors and say, y'all come, no matter what you're doing, no matter how you're living, then our congregations are not necessarily set apart. I'm going to move on from that. In Acts chapter 15, verse 19 through 21, when we read that, it shows that there were goyim who believed in Yeshua and wanted to study in the synagogues, but they were required to abide by at least 4 Noahide laws. They were to abstain from idolatry. They were to abstain from consuming and eating blood, eating animals that had been strangled in order that the blood would be saturated in the meat, and from sexual immorality. If they were willing to separate themselves to that degree, then they could come and sit and learn and find out more about how to be a part of the community of Yahweh Elohim. I want to tell you a story I heard many, many years ago, decades ago. We had an evangelist that came through our church when I was a teenager, and he related the story of his younger sister, who was a high school student. Evidently, this would have been in the 1970s. She was being teased by her peers, by other young girls in high school, because she was still a virgin. They mocked her. They ridiculed her. They made all sorts of discouraging comments. But she looked at them one day and silenced them all with this remark. She said, "I can be like you any day that I choose to, but you can never be like me again." She chose to value that which she was holding on to and saving for a righteous day. She was choosing to be set apart, being set apart from the prevailing mindset of that day that continues into our day, saying, "I choose to be set apart." But let's also consider that very often we're known by what we don't do rather than who we are. The purpose of being set apart from things is not to broadcast the list of the things that we don't do, but rather to reveal the reality of who we are. We're choosing to be a set apart people. Now, the second aspect of being set apart is not just set apart from, but what are you dedicated or separated to? There is both the negative and the positive in these aspects. We are dedicated, according to this Torah portion, you and I are to be dedicated or separated to the actions of showing honor. The word says here in this Torah portion that you and I are to show honor to our parents. Thankfully, I have parents that I can show honor to with a whole heart because they have lived an honorable life. Many have parents that have not demonstrated an honorable life for them, and it's difficult. Wherever you can, however, at whatever point you can, for whatever you can appreciate anything of your parents, show honor. Or at least show honor to those who are demonstrating right parental lifestyles. The word says in this Torah portion to show honor to those who are aged, who have gray hair. I'm getting close to the time where people are going to have to start showing me a little honor around here with the gray hairs that are showing up. But to remember the elderly and this current COVID-19 crisis, it is the elderly who seem to be the most specifically targeted. We need to show them honor by praying and interceding for them and crying out that Yah would show them mercy and bring them healing. The word teaches us that we should show honor to those who are in leadership in the secular world and also in the community of Am Israel. You've got a leader. If we have leaders, if we recognize those that are elders, if we recognize those who have giftings or are capable of making them a leader, then show them some sense of honor. I'm not shopping for it here myself, but across the broad spectrum of the body of Messiah. Stop being critical. A pastor of a local church congregation may preach and teach things that you disagree with them over, but you are not to show dishonor to them, but wherever you can, honor them. And doing so, when you honor those that Yah esteems, you are honoring and esteeming Yahweh himself. You and I are called to be set apart, separated to, dedicated to showing compassion, showing honor, and now showing compassion. I got challenged on this a couple years ago, realizing that I was too quick to judge, too quick to draw a hard line, that I needed to be mindful that people are not looking for what you know. They're looking for care. They're looking for compassion. Compassion shows up in such things as not completely harvesting all of your field. What that means is let someone else have a chance in your field. Very often, the mindset is go get your own field. This is my field. And what's in my field belongs to me. Yah says, have some compassion because not everybody has a field. And if they don't have one, share some of yours. But Father, you gave me this field. And this field is my responsibility. But let's also remember that the field that he gave to us is still his field. We are his stewards and caretakers. And if Yah wants to include someone else in our field, we may need to move over and make some room. That doesn't swallow too easy, but that's compassion. Showing favor to the blind. It says, do not oppress or curse those that are blind. That includes those who physically can't see or those who don't see. Those who can't see and those who don't see. We can't be too quick to write off folks who don't agree with us, who don't see things the way that we see them. Yah is asking that you and I have compassion on those who need their eyes opened. Then he also says those who are deaf. That includes those who can't hear and those who haven't heard. They have ears to hear, but as of yet, they haven't heard. We cannot assume that everyone knows and has heard everything that we know and have heard. Compassion. Compassion says, if your brother or your neighbor is wrong, reprove him. But in your reproving or correcting, be careful that you remember to do it in such a way as you would appreciate if you were on the receiving end. It's real easy to get out your finger and start wagging it and pointing at somebody. But I got to tell you, I personally don't like it when someone sticks their finger in my face. I find it insulting and demeaning. Therefore, I shouldn't do it to someone else. Then we find the famous verse that Yeshua quoted. You are to love your neighbor as yourself. We know that in theory. We don't know that necessarily so well in practice. But we are a set-apart people. We are set apart from hating others, but we are to be set apart to loving others. Not just generically saying, I love you. Well, I love you because I have to. I love you because the Bible says I have to. I love you well because Messiah first loved me. That really doesn't demonstrate the kind of love that we're being asked to show. The requirement here of the Torah, it is a Torah command. You are to love your neighbor as you love yourself. In other words, what you would want someone else to demonstrate love in, then you need to offer the same to them. Let's continue. Romans chapter 1 and verse 1. Rashul, the Apostle Paul, said that he was called and separated to the Besorah of Elohim, to the good news of Elohim. called and separated to the gospel, to the message of the kingdom. One might wonder, why aren't more people turning to the kingdom? Why aren't more people focused on the kingdom? Why aren't more people changing their living? Because there's not enough people that are dedicated to the message of the kingdom. You and I have been separated from everything else that we might be separated and dedicated to the declaration of the kingdom. So we have two aspects of separation, or being set apart. Set apart from, set apart to. Now I want to go back to chapter 16 and to this phrase of a command that was given to Aaron that says, do not come in at all times. Let's talk about encountering the Shekinah, the divine presence of the Most High. Yah's command was not at all times, but I think we can also say, but at times. Not at all times, but times. There are moments. It's not every day, but there are moments that you're going to encounter him. The tragic death of Nadab and Abihu revealed that Yah guards his presence against the whims of man. In the whimsical minds of men, they fancy themselves set apart sufficiently enough to encounter the Most High on any given situation. Denominationally, in our past, what we thought is if I preach it right, if we sing it right, if we pray it right, the power will show up and we're going to have a great church service. And our Hebraic roots, Messianic communities, if we sing it right, if we dance in the circle just so, if I teach enough golden nuggets, if we say the Shema correctly, if I pronounce the Aaronic blessing correctly, if I say the name correctly, and if we're on the right counter or calendar, then he will show up and we're going to encounter the Most High. Not a whole lot of difference. In chapter 17, we find that there is a requirement of you and I that we be dedicated to one altar, to one Elohim, to one priesthood, and to one Torah. What does this have to do? Yah says there is a procedure, there is a place, there is a time, there is a protocol, there are mechanics, there is liturgy, whether you want it or not, there is ritual, whether you accept it or not, to encountering me. You're not free to cook up your own formula and do it your own way. The prohibition here is against, excuse me, is against open field worship. I'm going to say that again. Open field worship, where one would find a place that they prefer, build an altar according to their own specifications, slaughter the animal of their own choosing and the manner that they choose, and worship the way that they personally prefer. When I buy a gift for my wife, am I seeking to give to her that which I want or that which she would appreciate and desire? When we worship the Most High, are we seeking to give him what he wants or what we want? We are not to freelance our worship or declare what doctrines appeal to our own minds, because our open field attempts to encounter Yah, the word warns us you may very well end up worshiping demons. I never have dust in my throat until I get on here on Shabbat. Excuse me. So Aaron is told, you just can't come in here and step into my presence and come and approach the mercy seat anytime that you so desire. There is a protocol. There is a procedure. And the procedure is important because it reveals who the Messiah is. Now let's bring this down to a practical application for us. We don't have a temple. We don't have a standing Levitical high priest. And no one this year is going to be sacrificing a goat. Not on the Temple Mount. Not that we can see at this point. So what is this saying to us? We do not live in the glory cloud all the time. I remember as a child being in church, and there were certain individuals, excuse me, as long as they were rejoicing, what we called in those days, quote unquote, shouting the victory, as long as they were enthused and positive and things were going well, they stayed in church and they did well. When they failed to do something that was correct, or they committed in their estimation some kind of a sin, they got defeated. And you didn't see them sitting in the pew for a while. Their understanding was, if I've got the victory, I need to be shouting the victory all the time. It doesn't work that way. Life happens, and it gets in the way of being victorious in our estimation. So like Nadab and Abihu, we tend to seek to have the great escape into the cloud of the Shekinah, being thrilled with the divine presence. And the desire is to leave the mundane and common life to everybody else. I was not aware of this until a few years ago. But there are actually some teachers out there, so I've been told and been exposed to a little bit, that claim that they live in the glory, that they are able to make frequent trips to the heavens, being caught up in the Spirit. And they want to teach other people how to make the journey in the Spirit into the heavenlies, and behold what is taking place there. There are those who claim to have conversations with angels on a frequent visit and frequent basis. Then they seek to have others to follow their pattern and encounter these ministering spirits as they do. All the while, what they're doing is they're elevating their own status. They're looked on as spiritual superheroes. But can I tell you that the Torah simply does not support this? This is not accurate. This is not scriptural. It's not something that you and I should be involved with. But it's an attempt to be elevated by being one who is so caught up in the Spirit that this present world has no value or meaning for us. There's a reason that Yah has left us in this mundane, carnal, temporal, physical world. And that is that you and I would have some sense of influence upon it. We have those moments where Yah does indeed encounter us, where he chooses to reveal himself to us. And when those moments take place, we need to embrace them with a whole heart and seek to be changed by them. But it does not permit us then to run from one religious shrine to another, looking for another glory encounter. For as much as our souls and our beings yearn and long for the divine manifestation of Yahweh and his divine presence, and as much as we need that encounter to infuse us and to change us, we're not called to live there unceasingly. You don't have to have goosebumps on your arms or hair standing up on your body in order to walk in the Spirit. Walking in the Spirit means basically walking in obedience with an attitude of joy. Listening and discerning what it is that the Father would have you to do and walking in obedience to that. So what are we called to do? You and I are called to diffuse the presence of Yah in our physical common world. Now, this is not something that I learned about in Sunday school. Neither is it something that I learned in Shabbat school. This is a rabbinical concept that I began to read about a few years ago. And the understanding from the rabbinical mind is that as you and I encounter him, as we look into the pages of this book, and we find its truths, as our minds are enlightened, as we become aware more and more of him, then we're to allow that knowledge, that encountering, that embracing of truth to diffuse through us and to begin to righteously influence whatever our community or our environment might consist of. Now, that may be easily done when we're gathering this house of David, if we're living in a communal setting where everybody's on the same page and everybody believes the same thing. When you're walking in a department store, you're in Walmart or the grocery store, on your job, out among some of your own family, it can be a hard thing to diffuse the presence of the Most High in an efficient and effective way. But the goal is to allow ourselves to get filled with him and let him spill over out of us. Somehow we have got to allow that presence to fill us in such a way that it moves beyond us. Yeshua described it as being the light of the world, and that we're not to hide our light from those who sit in darkness. Let me put it very, very simply. Live your life in such a way that those who see it, they want it. Live in such a way that others want what you have. Let me put it this way. Does the Torah life that you and I live, does it give us joy? I have to catch myself sometimes when I'm out in public that I don't get so disconnected from those that are around me or suspicious of those that are around me, that I don't get so angry about the current world situation and its restrictions that I forget to put a smile on my face, that I don't seem to have a sense of joy. If I'm going through a store with a frown and a scowl on my face, if I can't have a pleasant word for those who check me out as I'm making my purchases, what am I doing? The Torah is a liberating, powerful word from the Most High that should give you and I the sense of joy in the Ruach HaKodesh. Someone wrote a song many years ago that says, if you're happy, notify your face. Put a smile on there. Open up your eyes, raise your eyebrows, grin at somebody, let them become suspicious of what you might be up to, and share a pleasant word with them. Does the Torah cause you and I to walk in shalom? I'm tired of being agitated. I'm tired of being frustrated. I'm tired of being angry. We need to have some sense of joy and shalom about ourselves. Considering the reality that shalom is nothing is missing and nothing is broken, I'm walking in wholeness and completeness. Maybe we should say it's kind of hard to walk in holiness if you're not walking in wholeness. Allow the wholeness of Yah to produce the holiness of Yah within your heart. Now, how do you know whether you're being effective or not? Let's ask this question. Do people shun you or do they run to you? If you see folks that you know and they turn a corner to avoid you, you might want to do some inventory. When you see those that you know, do they smile and come joyfully to want to talk to you? Do they shun you or do they run from you? Now, what God did not call you and I to do is to slander and accuse. Why did God have to command us not to curse other people? Why did he have to say, do not oppress your neighbor? Why did he say, do not hate your brother? Why did he have to tell us to abstain from mixture or to be sexually pure? Why did he have to say to us, stay away from the idols? The reality is, those are the kinds of things that you and I would embrace and do if someone had not said no. We would find a legal loophole and we would find a reason why it would be all right. So Yah has written very clearly in his words that we are to abstain from these things because they clog up the diffusing ports. It's kind of hard to show the love of Yah to others when you're hating your brother. It's kind of hard to declare the purity of his kingdom when you're walking in impurity. I think we get the message. Let's go to our final points today. That is to understand that which is common and that which is set apart. That which is common is not sinful. It's just common. It's ordinary. It's everyday. It's the physical world reality. So, number one with this, do not do that which is set apart in a common way. Don't treat Shabbat commonly. Don't treat the feast days commonly. Shavuot that is coming up in just a few weeks, it is set apart. It's not a common day to do common things. Culturally, here in America, we have been taught to blur the lines between what is set apart and what's common. Here we have the individual independence mindset. I can do what I want to do the way I best determine that it needs to be done, at least up until the last couple of months. And so we take this fierce independence sometimes from our culture over into the application of the word. And it causes a blurring between that which is common and that which is set apart. We are not to take a casual attitude toward that which is holy or that which is set apart. I believe that whatever Nadav and Abihu did, however they transgressed, it was viewed as, in the eyes of Yah, as being common and not set apart. Yah says very simply that he is set apart. He says, I am Yahweh, I am Kadosh, I am set apart. We are not to approach him in a common attitude or with a casual attitude. Can I tell you, Yeshua is not your boyfriend, though some current music tends to lean that way. It's been well preached about running up to the throne of the Most High and crawling up in Daddy's lap like a child and telling him all your hurts and fears. He is a father to us. He is a caring, doting Abba to his dear children. But there is also an understanding of set apartness and a sense of his extreme holiness and set apartness that causes you and I and our attempt to approach him to recognize I must stand in Yeshua. And only in Messiah am I able to stand before the Most High. It's not a casual thing. He says that you and I are to be set apart. Listen to me. If you hear nothing else that I say today, listen to this. If Yah says that you and I are to be set apart, what that means is that you and I are no longer common. Stop treating yourself or seeing yourself as common and ordinary. Now, we don't like to over promote ourselves. We might feel like, I shouldn't speak of myself too highly. But we need to stop seeing ourselves as common and non-important. I don't know how many times I've heard people say, well, I'm not that important. Yes, you are. If Yah has called you, if the blood of Messiah has been spilled for you, if the kingdom is reserving a place for you, if Yah has assigned you, if he's called you, if he's separated you, you are important. Stop saying, I'm not that important. Yes, you are. Others would say, well, I'm nothing special. Yes, you are. In his word, in Exodus, in Shemot chapter 19, Yah says, you are a priceless, precious treasure to me, a peculiar people, and a set-apart nation. You are a royal priest. You are special. That doesn't give you a right to be obnoxious. It doesn't give you a right to walk as an elitist, but you are special. Stop looking in the mirror and thinking of yourself in small terms. Recognize who you are. He says, I want you to be set apart. Recognize who you are. Get up out of your bed in the morning and recognize I am a man or a woman of the Most High. I am a child of Elohim. I am called. I am redeemed. I am set apart. I am empowered. I have anointing. I have a calling. I have a purpose. I have a mission today. I have a word that will bring healing and hope to somebody. I have something significant and strategic to do for the Most High, and I am not a nobody any longer. If you hear nothing else I say today, hear that. Let me ask this question. Are our prayers going unanswered because they were offered up in a casual, common manner, like we're just talking to the next guy in line at the grocery store? When you're talking to the Most High, I love to hear Mike Clayton pray at times, and he refers to the Most High as Sir. I have come to a place, it's almost a habit, and I keep reminding myself, don't make this a habit. Mean what you say. And I address him as Almighty Yah. When I say Almighty Yah, I come before you in the name of Messiah Yeshua. I'm reminding myself that there is no lack of power in the one that I am addressing. He is Almighty. He is El Gibor. And whatever I come to him with, he has the power and the authority and the willingness and the compassion to get it done in my life. Pray what you mean and mean what you pray. Don't address him with a casual prayer just thrown up into the air and you hope that it sticks. Is our worship unacceptable to him because we offer it up in a common or ordinary manner? You can't stand before him and throw something together and expect it to have some sense of oomph and power. I don't ever want to hear again someone say, well, I haven't practiced, but y'all pray for me while I try to sing. That was commonly spoken years gone by. I don't ever want to hear that again. And I don't want to be guilty of it. So not only should we not do that which is set apart in a common way, the reverse is true. We need to do that which is common with a set apart heart. Now, it would be wonderful if the trumpet would sound and Messiah would split the sky and come and take us out of this current realm of things and usher us into the kingdom in an immediate moment at Shavuot or at Yom Teruah or Yom Kippur. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be in the kingdom this coming Sukkot? And if that does not take place, you and I are still going to have to mow the yard and wash the dishes and go to work and get some things done that are common, everyday, ordinary life circumstance things. We don't live in a glory cloud every day of our lives. We encounter the common world that is around us. And again, common does not mean sinful. It means physical realm oriented. But even while we do that which is common, we can do it with our hearts and our minds in a set apart status. That is, that I engage the world that is around me physically as a spiritual being first. Yeshua prayed about you and I, and he said this: I have given them your word, your Torah, and the world hated them because they are not of the world, as I am not of the world. I do not pray that you should take them out of the world. Let that sink in a moment. Yeshua said specifically to the Father, I have not asked you to take them out of the world. That is, Yeshua has chosen to leave you and I in this present world by choice, on purpose, for a reason. He said, but I am praying that you keep them from the wicked one. They are not of the world as I am not of the world. That's Yochanan 17, verses 14 through 16. What I hear Yeshua saying there is, I strategically leave them in this world that they have righteous influence on this world, but I am asking you, Father, to keep them from the unrighteous influence of the wicked ones that are around them. In other words, Yeshua has chosen to leave you and I in this world that we might be the influencers and not the ones influenced. That means that you and I have the ability to be in this world but not of it. That means that you and I can be set apart even while we do common things. It does come down to this: holiness. Holiness has to be more than a religious movement. Holiness has to be more than a every once in a while event for us. It becomes our heart set, our mindset. It becomes our motivation. It becomes our attitude, which says, I will be set apart, for he is set apart. Now, this is not a lengthy word today. And then again, it's intentionally pastoral. It's just good admonition, good word, good encouragement for you. It's real easy for you and I to get caught up in all of the stuff that's going on. And I know because I've done so. But let's find Messiah in the middle of this. Let's find the kingdom and its coming in the midst of this. And let's lift up our heads and rejoice, for our redemption is drawing nigh. Be encouraged. If there's anybody in this world that's going to eat, I believe that Yah is going to feed his people. If we have to go find manna on the ground, we're going to eat. Yah knows that you have, Yeshua said that he knows that you have need of shelter and clothing and food. And if he can take care of the birds of the air and the flowers of the field, he can take care of you. Seek you first, however, the kingdom of Elohim and his righteousness, and then all of this other stuff will be added to you. Yah's going to deliver his people out of the midst of all of this. Those who are set apart, as he is set apart. Let's pray. Almighty Yah, you have all provision and power in heaven and earth through Yeshua to do all that is needed to be done and all that would be asked of you. You lack no strength. You lack no ability. You have perfect compassion that you would be willing to listen to the cries of your people and move heaven and earth in their behalf to take care of them. You are mindful of our need. You are mindful of our call. Your ears are open to us. Even in spite of our failings, Father, you hear us. We cry out to you for the ability to make teshuvah, to turn from those things that are unlike you. We cry out to you today, Father, for the ability to walk righteously in the eyes of those that see us, to have compassionate, joyful, peaceful influence upon their lives. May we exhibit and demonstrate the heart of Messiah Yeshua to all who see us, even to those that are inside our own homes. Father, guard us in your presence and invite us into your presence and enable us to encounter you, not as common, but as one set apart. Oh, Yah, thank you for Shabbat. Thank you for your word today. In the name of Yeshua. Amen. Will you receive the blessing of his name today? If I can get this up over my head. Amen. Receive his name. Yivarakaka Yahweh vayishmareka. Yahweh panavileka vikoneka. Isa Yahweh panavileka viasim lacha. Shalom. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face to shine upon you and be graciously favorable to you. May Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you that he may grant to you shalom. Amen. You sing the Shema with me? Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malkutu, Le'alam Va'ed. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov. I'm going to post a connection here for those who would like to spend some time on fellowship together. It's there in the chat. And go to Zoom. We'll start in about 5 minutes. Look forward to seeing you there. We love you. We miss being with you. I can't wait to have the opportunity for Laura and I to be with you, put our arms around you, and let you know how much we love you and miss you. Hopefully, we'll see you a few moments later at Zoom. Until then, shalom, Shabbat shalom.